Stay tuned for the Sean Casey Show, a podcast for patriots. Welcome back. It is the Sean Casey Show, a podcast for patriots. I am Sean Casey. This is where the resistance meets each and every episode as we try to stop this march to Marxism that is being led by Chairman Joe and cackling Kamala Harris. This is the area where you want to come. Like-minded patriots, share it with your family, friends, colleagues, co-workers. You name it, like-minded patriots. This is where the resistance meets. We urge you to subscribe, and that way the show goes directly to your electric device of your choice. And then do us a favor, rate and review. Coming up in this episode, we have a fascinating interview with Peachy Keenan, the domestic extremist. You might have seen her on Tucker, or you might have heard of her on other outlets. She is a great writer and a great patriot, and she's going to join us to talk about her new book, The Domestic Extremist, coming up shortly. But we are joined in the battle with our executive producer, Michelle Double X Drusilla. Hello, Michelle.
Hi. Yeah, let's out those commies.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get them out and fight back and make sure that we are getting our fellow patriots in line. Just as we were going into record today, we got news of the Hunter Biden sweetheart deal. And this is exactly a sweetheart deal. So apparently, as you know, he is being investigated on a number of fronts. We got the laptop from hell. We got the bribery scheme that's already being investigated in Congress. But this is the Injustice Department's not so, I guess, a very shallow attempt to convince us there's actually justice. There's a two-tiered justice system. And let me tell you, let me show you the example between the two. One, just several weeks ago, former President Trump was arraigned, indicted again. And now today we get news that his trial date is August 14th. So within 2 months of his indictment or arraignment, President Trump is going to stand trial. That never happens. No. Especially when the federal government brings a classified documents, which is not really a classified documents case. It's more about the Espionage Act. But this never happens with this kind of speed.
Isn't that around the debate? Isn't there a debate? The debate
is not too far from that. I think it's around right around that time. I thought August 18 was sticking in my mind for some reason, but I'll have to go back and
makes you wonder.
And find out. But it never happens that quickly, ever. Today we get wind of a deal. Before the charges were even made, a deal was struck. Okay? Before we ever got public wind of the charges, Hunter Biden is going to plead guilty to 3 counts, 2 of which are tax misdemeanors, and the other is a felony gun charge, which most people would actually have to go to prison over.
Oh, yeah.
That's for some reason
for sure.
or another, for some length of time. But already a sweetheart deal has been struck that if he agrees to plead guilty to the 3 counts, and if he behaves himself, doesn't get arrested again, or doesn't violate the law, the gun charge will be wiped clean completely. That, folks, is a sweetheart deal. No jail time, no prison time for the smartest guy that Chairman Joe knows, Hunter Biden. Boy, does that, the stench of this deal, and this isn't the first time, because you remember, Hunter Biden was actually in the Navy. He was in the Navy back in 2012, about 10, 11, 12 years ago. He was in the Navy. He failed a drug test, and the next day, he got an administrative discharge from the Navy. Now, normally, when you fail a drug test, you get a dishonorable discharge from the military.
That's right.
But not Hunter Biden, not when you're protected by the Biden crime family. By then, Senator actually was Vice President Biden at the time. So Vice President Biden pulled his son's you-know-what out of the fire when he got kicked out of the Navy for failing a drug test. And then on his firearms purchase application. They do a background check for you. He, on the test asked the question, have you or are you addicted? Have you ever been or are you addicted to drugs? He responded, no. Well, in his book, he said that at the time he was addicted to drugs. So he either lied on his federal license application or he was lying in the book. For his sake, he better have been lying in the book. Because we all know that they're liars. But if you lie on the federal form, that is a felony and you go to jail. And remember all this stuff about getting rid of the guns and cleaning up the problem with guns in America. Joe Biden doesn't let a week go by without bitching about the availability of guns and illegal guns. And here he is. And not only that, he threw the gun away. Or his wife, or he blamed his then wife for throwing the gun away. They didn't dispose of the gun properly, and that ended up in the wrong hands as well. I think the police ended up getting a hold of that gun. So all sorts of lying about guns, mishandling guns, yet Hunter Biden won't say a single day inside a cell for his violation of the law.
Walks away smelling like a rose.
Sweetheart deal. From the big guy to the smartest guy he knows. So, and that is something you look at that for 5 years. They've been investigating Hunter Biden. 5 years. Donald Trump was arraigned 2 weeks ago, and he already has a trial date. Isn't that something, folks? Now, a year ago, they began investigating the Trump classified document scandal, whatever, and then eventually brought charges a year later. But, there's more of a priority in getting Trump out of the race than there is going after Hunter Biden. Now, this does not exonerate him of other potential problems, legal problems, because you've got where'd all that money come from? Yes, you did evade taxes. You didn't pay your taxes. But where did that money come from? We're very interested to find out if it came from the Chinese or the Ukraine or the wife of the mayor of Moscow. $3.5 million given to Hunter Biden. There was the $100,000 piece of jewelry that was given to him as well. Did he declare that on his taxes? Probably not. And people sometimes people go to jail for tax evasion. It's all how big it is, or if it was a repeat offender, or if there are multiple people involved. So once again, a sweetheart deal for Hunter Biden. Not so much for Donald Trump, who's got to fight tooth and nail every inch of the way against the swamp-driven media and the Democrat Party. So we shall see, but there's no doubt in my mind that this is this deal stinks to high heaven, and it is something that this shows you just there is a two-tier justice system, and they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes and make you believe, oh, yeah, well, we're going after the president's son. We're going after Donald Trump. We'll go after everybody. Yeah, but it's a again, it's careful. It's a shell game. It's bait and switch. The deal was, never mind, slap on the wrist. And do you really think a guy that is seen with crack pipe dangling from his mouth, with hookers all over, and look, there's other crimes on that laptop. According to Rudy Giuliani, there are other crimes, and there may be child trafficking. Again, he was seen measuring. He had a scale in there. That's not just possession of drugs. That might be with intent to distribute. So there's another crime that they could be investigating. Maybe, I don't know. We will have to see, but I don't think we'll ever get the full truth, especially from this Justice Department and Merrick Garland. All right. That being said, we've got the other big story of the day was the sit-down interview, one-on-one interview that Brett Baier had with Donald Trump. Now, a lot of people are asking me, why would Donald Trump give Brett Baier a Democrat hack, an avowed never-Trumper, the guy that helped call Arizona early while people were still voting, which, again, he's one of the Murdoch boys and girls' main protectors and defenders, Brett Baier. And he came loaded for Baier, pardon the pun, coming after Trump on a number of occasions. But the first item had to do with the boxes themselves. Why? And again, I think Greg Kelly at Newsmax summed it up great because you're talking about 100 total documents, all right, in the box. And it would all have fit in one box. If it was nothing but those documents in question, it would have all fit in just one box. Instead, there were, I don't know, 50 boxes or so. And you saw the boxes all lined up, and they had them in the bathroom next to the shower. They were in the ballroom. They were neatly spread out all over the floor. That's all kabuki theater. It's all for show. Mm-hmm. And the other thing you should keep in mind is just because there is a classified marking on the document, that doesn't mean that it wasn't declassified by President Trump, which he says they were. They were all declassified. Personally, I do think we need to reform completely our classification procedures and protocols. There's way too much overclassification of stuff. We should be interested in protecting sources and methods. And that's it, really. Everything else, I think the American people have every right to know. And if President Trump, under Article 2, Section 1, we discussed that the other day, all the executive powers vested in a president of the United States. If he decides he wants the American people to know what was in those documents, if he wants to know about the UFOs or who killed Kennedy, that's up to him. That is the prerogative of the executive power and no one else. So keep in mind that these documents may have been marked classified, but had already been declassified. That's the reason why they never charged him with trafficking in classified documents or mishandling. They charged him with this 105-year-old Espionage Act that he willful intent retained national defense information, or NDI as it's called, which he wasn't entitled to do. Good luck with that. I don't think that's going to fly either. So here's the first question about the items in the boxes. Brett Baier, Donald Trump on special report last night.
Please, could we have it back?
And they asked for that.
Because they have no.
They did ask for it.
No, and
they said, "Can you give the documents back?"
And we were talking.
And then they said they went to DOJ to subpoena you to get them
which
back.
They've never done before.
Right. But why not just hand them over then?
Because I had boxes. I want to go through the boxes and get all my personal things out. I don't want to hand that over to NARA yet. And I was very busy, as you've sort of seen.
Yeah, but according to the indictment, you then tell this aide to move to other locations after telling your lawyers to say you'd fully complied with the subpoena when you hadn't.
But before I send boxes over, I have to take all of my things out. These boxes were interspersed with all sorts of things, golf shirts, clothing, pants, shoes. There were many things. I would say much more, not that I know of, but everything was declassified. And Biden didn't have the right to do that because he wasn't president. Nor did Mike Pence, by the way, have the right to do that because he wasn't president.
Yeah, and those are two key points. Again, remember, classified documents may not be classified, or just because they have classified markings, the president declassified them. Only the president can do that under Article 2, Section 1. The vice president can't do it. The Secretary of State can't do it. Members of the Senate or House can't do it. Only the president has that power. That's now, if that's the case, are you going to go investigate previous presidents like Clinton, like Obama, like George W. Bush 43, Jimmy Carter, who's still around? Are you going to do that? Probably not. This is only about getting Donald Trump. And Trump points out in this clip that he, as I've stated repeatedly, under the Presidential Records Act of 1978, and also the Article 2, Section 1, he has every right to keep whatever records he deems fit. And he makes this point in the interview.
For years, where it was very seriously classified. I have every right to have those boxes. This is purely a Presidential Records Act. This is not a criminal thing. In fact, the New York Times of all had a story just the other day that the only way NARA could ever get this stuff, this back, would be please, could we have it back?
And they asked for that.
Because they have no,
they did ask for it.
No. All right, so, and the New York Times actually pointed that out in a piece, saying that, Trump's right. They could ask for it back. He's not obligated to give it back. They can say, please, for historical purposes, may we have a copy? And it's up to the president. The Congress, the legislative branch cannot restrain the executive branch and vice versa. It's called checks and balances. And that's why we have checks and balances. Now, Mike Pence, he got caught in a lie, not under oath, but it was still a lie. Here is Pence. I think the interview was on ABC, talking about his classified documents he had custody of, but initially he denied it.
You take any classified documents with you from the White House?
I did not.
Do you see any reason for anyone to take classified documents with them leaving the White House?
Well, there'd be no reason to have classified documents, particularly if they were in an unprotected area.
Well, there were classified documents, and they were in, as you report, an unprotected area.
Right. Yeah. So Pence lied.
Right.
Okay. He absolutely lied, and that kind of shows you his character. He's an evangelical Christian. He lied, unless he forgot. And that he took it. Maybe we should give him benefit.
He looked very uncomfortable in that interview at that point. He did, because he knew.
He was on the hot seat.
Mm-hmm.
He knew. Now, the Pence documents came up last night with Brett Baier trying to grill Donald Trump, and Brett Baier got it wrong, and Trump, of course, was right again.
Your Vice President Mike Pence says he's, quote, deeply troubled by what's in the indictment. And he says, quote, the indictment contains serious charges and I cannot defend what's alleged.
Mike Pence had documents that were classified.
And he turned them over.
No, he didn't turn them over. He got caught. His lawyers found some documents, and then he turned them over. Why did he have them? He shouldn't be saying that because he had classified documents. And immediately they said, oh, that's okay. And I suppose it's going to be okay with Biden, too, even though he has them in Chinatown, even though he has them in Delaware, and probably 100 times more than I have.
So you're not worried about this case?
Based on the law, zero. Zero. Presidential Records Act, plus the Clinton case, which was won by Clinton as president because he took tapes of leaders in his socks. Zero.
Okay.
Zero. And every good lawyer has said it, and you've seen that. Every good lawyer has said that.
Obviously, there are others who push back. And
this was a weaponization of politics. This was a weaponization of the White House. This was a horrible thing. A candidate that's leading, I'm leading Biden by a lot, they go out and they weaponize.
Indeed they do. And you see how quickly Brett Baier tried to change the subject away from Pence onto something else. Our founding fathers quote today, nothing can stop the man with the right mental attitude from achieving his goal. Nothing on earth can help the man with the wrong mental attitude. That was from founding father Thomas Jefferson. And boy, is he right about that.
He is.
All right, now it's time for our interview with, again, the domestic terrorist herself, Peachy Keenan. Enjoy. Okay, we are back here on the Sean Casey Show, a podcast for patriots. Joining me in this segment is Peachy Keenan. That is a pseudonym for a writer and mother living deep behind enemy lines. We joke that we're here behind in the blue state of Maryland and the blue metro of Baltimore behind enemy lines, but she's really behind enemy lines on the West Coast in California. She identifies as a husbosexual. What the heck does that mean, Peachy?
Well, since anyone is allowed to make up their own gender orientation, sexual orientation these days, I made up my own one. And a husbosexual means that I am attracted to anyone who identifies as my husband.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense now. The book is The Domestic Extremist. I'm holding it right here. It is an excellent read. I'll tell you why it's an excellent read. This is like a battle plan for the current culture war. And the best part about it is the chapter, We Are Going to Win. We'll get to that in just a second here. But are you a recovering liberal?
That's right. And I talk about that in the book. Absolutely. Domestic extremists are made and not born, at least in my case. I've done a complete 180 in my life. And I like to say I escaped feminism by the skin of my teeth, Sean.
Yeah, well, you get out just in time.
I did.
The title, domestic extremist. I mean, you could call it rabid traditionalist or family fundamentalist.
That's
how
right.
did you settle on domestic extremist?
Well, I just thought it was funny because, me and my friends, we have large families, we go to mass, and people give us weird looks here in Los Angeles. We're kind of freaks. We're looked at as these extremists, But I was joking that, we're not domestic extremists. We're just extremely domestic. And so that's where I got the title.
All right, so you're going from a feminist and an atheist to a domesticated Catholic. That's quite a transition.
Yeah, I had my own transition, as they say. Over time, no surgery was required. I retained all my parts. Okay. Yeah, I came a long way. I was a militant atheist, pro-choice feminist, a liberal, and just over time, the reality of life and meeting my husband and having children. At one point, I had our first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. And that was the moment where he was like, I'm going back to the church. I'm going to become a Catholic. And I was like, okay, whatever, buddy. But then going through the process with him, I realized like, oh, wow, this is something profound. I had never met anyone who was religious in my life, never in my life, or even met a conservative. And so just over the process of, experiencing real life, I ended up here.
Yeah, it's a great story, no doubt. Yeah, one of the things, and I followed you a long time on Twitter.
Oh, thanks.
And I do think the thing that attracted me to your writing is your biting wit. I think that conservatives can be much more effective when they put a humorous spin on something or write in a funny manner, because I think it catches people's attention. I just wanted to share one piece of the book with our audience today. You got to get the book. The book is just, the whole thing is just fabulous.
Thank you.
You write, after 100 years of fighting for the rights of biological females, mainstream feminism quit. We got ghosted. In a few short years, feminists went from worshiping the girl boss to worshiping girls with balls. Feminists stopped helping girls compete on a level playing field. Instead, they literally leveled the playing field, destroying sports for a generation of young women. The reason is simple. Feminists discovered a new kind of woman they like better. Men. So there you have it from the domestic extremists. So there are many fronts on the culture war.
Yeah.
Where do you think we need to start? Where's the first pushback or fight or the first battle plan?
Oh, man. Yeah. It seems like we're really getting on all sides now. I mean, they're coming for the children. They're coming for sports. They're coming for the Dodgers, all the consumer products, every store you shop in. You just feel like, oh, my gosh, I can never leave the house. Like, what do I do? Every movie. But the reason I wrote the book is because I really feel like the only place to start is like where I started, which is figuring out a way to get out of this, this sort of like broken lifestyle that they're offering young women, which is stay on Tinder for 10 years, never settle down, sterilize yourself, freeze your eggs, So I think for me, that's where I would love to see people start, is taking a hold of themselves, kind of withdrawing themselves from that like mindset and realizing, the good things in life are these sort of old fashioned things, these simple kind of timeless human truths that we have to sort of accept. Like, here we are, we're human beings. It's biological. Like, this is the way to do it. And so I hope that's what some people at least might choose to do after reading the book.
Yeah, you talk about in the forward to the book about family, parenthood, and tradition being all triggers for the left. And these are things that we all grew up with. We all wanted that to be in a big family, and we respected our parents. Our parents weren't supposed to be our friends. Our parents were supposed to be somewhat of authorities. They were supposed to protect us and keep us from harm, not to throw keggers for us.
Right. And to affirm our every whim and our every crazy idea. No, the parents have to push back. The parents are the primary authority. You got to say no to kids. I did a lot of sneaking around my parents. If they had affirmed everything I wanted to do, I probably wouldn't have wanted to do those things. I don't know. We're in this crazy world where the little kids, 3-year-olds, are telling their mommies that they want to change their gender. And the moms are like, oh, how wonderful. He's telling me what he wants to do. No, he's 3. Yeah. My toddler son thought he was Buzz Lightyear for 4 years. We had to call him Buzz. I didn't have Space Ranger reassignment surgery. It's like, no. What are we doing?
To that note, on Sunday, which was Father's Day, NPR they did a piece on a biological woman who was transitioning to a man, but she forgot to take her hormones or whatever, and she got pregnant. And so that was our Father's Day story on NPR this year.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the best fathers are the ones who are born female. I mean, that's who we want to elevate now as fathers and as, these male role models who are girls. And, they had a pregnant woman who thinks she's a man. I think she was on the cover of British Vogue or, Glamour magazine this month to celebrate for Pride Month. And, I mean, in any other world, this is like an idiocracy. This is absurd on its face. It's funny. It's comical, but you're not allowed to laugh. If you laugh at this and make fun of it, you're just instantly beheaded.
But you are allowed to mock Catholics and Christians, especially if you're the Los Angeles Dodgers. So being in the Los Angeles area, tell us a little bit about that, because we all talked about it on talk radio and on our podcast, and how this seems to be the only group, or one of the few groups, Black conservatives and, of course, Christians and Catholics. It's all mock all the time.
Yeah, where it's being a conservative Catholic, you're the last group where it's okay to make fun of them and mock them and really hate them. So I actually went to the event on Friday night at Pride Night at Dodger Stadium. I wrote an essay about it for the Federalist called Foul Ball. And so it was like 2,000 people were there peacefully praying. Okay. People were kneeling in the hot sun on asphalt. It was completely peaceful. There was 1 million cops. LAPD was like totally on our side. They were saying, God bless you. They were like, people were so grateful to them. And everyone knew that the cops were not protecting the Pride Night attendees from us. They were protecting us from the Pride Night attendees. Right. We have seen transgender activists be very violent in protests and attack people for their beliefs. This was so peaceful. It was really beautiful to see. And basically everyone said the same thing. We don't hate them. We don't hate these sisters, these men in drag, in mocking nuns. We pray for them. We hope they can reform their, pray for their souls. Right. But they hate us. They, love is love, but they hate you and want you dead, And the event itself was like nothing. It was like this very short, brief ceremony. They had it an hour before the game. The Dodgers were so cowardly. They didn't even have the Pride event in front of the large crowd. They buried it. And there was almost no one there because they didn't want the boos. And there still were boos. But it was really not the event. It's the fact that the Dodgers, despite all the outcry, despite all the pushback, decided to side with the anti-Catholic bigots.
Right. Well,
that's
first
the issue.
They had disinvited them, and then they got pushed back on that, so they re-invited them. Yeah. And they were getting major blowback on that, and they just said, what the hell? I mean, I think the Texas Rangers were the only team that didn't have some kind of Pride Night in Major League Baseball. So we got a lot of work to do, don't we, Peachy?
Yeah, I mean, every major league team, everywhere you look, even, down to little girls' sports, has been taken over by this very small but very loud kind of fringe group. And they're now running the show. I mean, they're dictating the rules to all of us. And they've kind of seeded all these big corporations, marketing departments, with their acolytes, with their kind of very woke, usually, young female marketing executives. And they're just taking, lighter fluid and burning these incredible reputations, all this goodwill, Disney, the Dodgers, family-friendly, wholesome reputations, they're just immolating themselves. It's surprising, and it's really sad. I mean, honestly, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I always had this, sort of suspicion about Disney from the get-go, because they always seem to kill off parents in a lot of their animated films. And even when I was younger, I was like, well, there goes another one. I mean, am I missing something here? So you were writing under this pseudonym for quite some time. You wrote for big corporations and darn good writer. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you.
Why did you quote unquote come out? And I know you're not giving your name, but your face is allowed to be seen now. So why did you decide to come out and be public about it?
Well, it is Pride Month. Everyone else is coming out. No, I was not going to. I got the book deal, and they were like, "Well, are you ever going to reveal yourself?" And I was like, "I don't know. I like being anonymous. It's very safe. I live in LA, so I don't want people to know. I don't want my neighbors
You don't want to be swatted.
Yeah, they're living next to this extremist, dangerous person. But basically, I got invited before Tucker Carlson's show got canceled on Fox. They had invited me to come on the night of my book launch, and I'm a huge Tucker fan, so I was like, okay, I'll do it for Tucker. And then, like right after that, his show got canceled, but they kept the appointment, so I just thought, well, I'll just go for it, And so it was scary. It was definitely nerve-wracking, but so far the response, I'm still alive. My house hasn't been burned down, so fingers crossed.
I think, again, just we'll hope and pray for you because
Thank you.
Our good buddy Andy Breitbart. Who knows? We still don't know what happened to him, but it's look, you're a brave woman, and we thank you for writing this book. So before we go, I always like to leave on a positive note. So you write a lot about what's going on we need to make men great again. We need to reward parents, and women have to feel comfortable in their own skin, raising 3, 4, or more children in the family, get back to God, back to faith. But how are we going to win this thing? This has taken decades in this culture war, starting about the counterculture of the mid 60s. Mm-hmm. How do we win this thing? How do we turn it around?
Well, the good news is I think finally the kind of like counter revolution has begun. And that's largely to thank the left. I thank the sisters. Like, they're so outrageous. They're so over the line that people can't help but say no to that and say, you know what? No, like, we're done. And so the more they expose themselves, like expose, no pun intended, the more Dylan Mulvaney, prances around in his little leotards or whatever, the more people are like, no, like, not doing it. And so I think that is how we start to win, by letting, let them expose who they are, what they believe, what they want to do with your kids. I just see video after video of like school teachers saying how they're going to secretly indoctrinate the kids to become trans. Yes, like, please tell us all your plans. We're catching them monologuing, they're going down.
Yeah, well, that was the beauty of the remote learning. Because parents for the first time got a really inside peek of what was going on in our schools.
Right.
Is it just the very definition of insanity, Peachy, that you were involved in the feminist movement at one point, and it was all about empowering the girl boss and lifting that ceiling, that glass ceiling, and now we find that they're not really speaking out against men posing as women?
Yeah, feminism has completely dropped the ball. They started off with
pardon the pun.
The pun. They started off with good intentions. Women could get jobs and work and not have to, resort to prostitution to feed their family. Okay, fine. But now, they've totally forsaken women. Women don't matter. Girls don't matter. They want you to be able to have to shower with a male, your 12-year-old daughter, and not, if you complain about it, you're in trouble with the feminists now. And so I think that they've just been kind of, the whole movement is a fraud at this point.
Now, and we had the governor of Maryland, newly elected, his name is Wes Moore. He's like the Obama 2.0. But he said on a TV interview with Jen Psaki on MSNBC the other day that not exposing your children to this CRT curriculum, to this Pride curriculum, to the kinds of things we're talking about here, transitioning, et cetera, is tantamount to castrating them. That's actually a quote from Governor Moore. Your reaction to that?
It sounds like he's been mentally castrated. To be honest, like, these people are brain dead. They're the walking dead. Look, here in California, they're passing bills. There's like a new one every week coming out of Sacramento. If you don't immediately gender affirm your toddler, you get accused of child abuse. You're going to jail. They're going to take your kid to a foster home where they can properly medicate them and cut their, pieces of them off. So, we have to say no. Like, you just have to say no, because that's where we're headed if we don't kind of join forces. That's why the Dodger event was so great. There is a lot of strength in our numbers. We have to remember that. You're not alone.
There were hardly any people in the stands during the when they were being honored as heroes. Really, heroes? I know a lot of people that would qualify, and they're not one. The book is The Domestic Extremist, Peachy Keenan. It is well worth the read. As I say, it is a field manual for the battle against the culture wars here. Peachy, thanks so much for joining us, and the best of luck to you on the book as well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, we are back, and I hope you enjoyed that interview with Peachy Keenan, the domestic terrorist, all the way from the left coast, where she's really, truly trapped behind enemy lines.
And not the truth.
It was really, really enjoyable. All right, the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken. This is, again, it's either one of the biggest faux pas or maybe not. Maybe he wanted to send a message to President Xi and the rest of the world that the United States really does not intend. We've had illegitimate President Biden say on numerous occasions that the United States would send U.S. soldiers in harm's way to defend Taiwan if they were attacked or invaded by China. He said it on 3 separate occasions in 3 different interviews. But Blinken goes over to China to save face and beg, can you please reestablish the hotline between the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, and his counterpart in China? They rejected that. Can we get you on a phone call or a visit with Joe Biden in the future? They were non-committal to that. Instead, Blinken goes and bends the knee to the CCP over Taiwan. Here is what he said yesterday.
On Taiwan, I reiterated the long-standing U.S. One China policy. That policy has not changed. It's guided by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, the 6 assurances. We do not support Taiwan independence. We remain opposed to any unilateral changes to the status quo by either side. We continue to expect the peaceful resolution of cross-strait differences.
That's not the first time he has said that, by the way. He said it again, like last year around this time.
Yeah, they're not on the same page. Yeah. You know, it's whatever, whichever way that the political winds blow, that they think they have to appease Xi Jinping in China. And right now, this administration, this regime is a foreign policy disaster.
Really is.
This happening with China and Taiwan. You've got the rumors of the details coming out of the Iran nuke deal, which now will allow them to basically enrich up to 60% of the uranium they already have, which is enough to make a nuclear weapon, after telling them, not on my watch, that they would never have a nuclear bomb. Israel's going to take them out. Okay, because the United States won't do it under the feckless Joe Biden. Israel will end up taking the Iranian nuclear stockpile out, I'm predicting right now. Then you have the whole Ukraine war, this counteroffensive that we were supposed to hear that the Ukraine was mounting. Guess what? It's been put on operational pause because it's failing. The Russians control the skies.
Yeah.
If you control the air, if you have superior air power, it really doesn't matter what happens on the ground. Eventually, you do have to hold the ground. But if you're getting hammered from the air and you can't fire back and you can't defend yourself, you're done. It's toast. And Zelensky's toast, and he knows it. But he's trying to hang on and continue to get money. And see, the problem is they really needed the F-16s 6 months ago. To the pilots to be trained. They waited too late to give. Not that I wanted them to give F-16s, but I'm saying once they committed and they decided to give them F-16s, it takes 4 to 6 months to train a pilot on an F-16. And that's the reason why they're getting routed in the air. The Russian aircraft is superior to what they have right now, or in numbers and in type. So that being said, it really is the world. We have a southern border, which is a complete mess. And again, I can't believe that his Gallup approval ratings aren't in the 20s.
Oh, they are. They gotta be. They're just pumping them up, cooking the books.
Another turncoat is Brad Raffensperger, Secretary of State of Georgia, who refuses to clean up Georgia's elections, even though the Haldeman report came out in the last week saying that, yes, Dominion voting machines are vulnerable. Yes, they can be hacked. Yes, they can be hooked up to the internet and the results controlled from a remote location. Oh, I don't know, like China. Okay? Unfortunately, Fox settled way too soon and with the Dominion voting lawsuit, because now the media is starting to change its tune. It's something that we have maintained since day one, just like the CCP unleashed a bioweapon. We were called conspiracy theorists and kooks. I think in the end we'll be proven right on that as well. But Raffensperger, he now wants to debate number 45. Here is the Secretary of State of Georgia.
Well, maybe it's time that he and I get together. What I would say is, why don't we all, he and I, go out to the Reagan Library, we'll have a debate. I'll bring a copy of my letter to Congress, and I'll bring a copy of my book, Integrity Counts. And maybe perhaps he could bring the reports that he paid for by Simpatico and the Berkeley Research Group, and show him what the election results, and we'll debate the issues point by point. Because at the end of the day, I have facts on my side, and he doesn't.
Yeah, well, nice try. First off, you writing a book called Integrity Counts is one of the most laughable things I think I've ever heard. And then secondly, this guy is crooked as the day is long, especially in summertime. And by the way, we are on the eve of our first big first day of summer. Attorney General Bill Barr now is he is in attack mode. He knows the swamp's in trouble, and the more Bill Barr attacks, the more trouble the swamp is in. Here is his latest attack on President Trump.
Do you believe he lied to the Justice Department?
Do I personally believe it? Yes, I do.
And do you believe that he continues to claim that he has all these privileges and rights under the Presidential Records Act? Is he mischaracterizing the act?
Absolutely. The legal theory by which he gets to take battle plans and sensitive national security information as his personal papers is absurd. It's just as wacky as the legal doctrine they came up with for, having the vice president unilaterally determine who won the election. The whole purpose of the statute, the Presidential Records Act, was to stop presidents from taking official documents out of the White House. It was passed after Watergate. That's the whole purpose of it. And therefore, it restricted what a president can take. It says it's purely private, that had nothing to do with the deliberations of government policy. Obviously, these documents are not purely private. It's obvious. And they're not even now arguing that it's purely private. What they're saying is the president just has sweeping discretion to say they are, even though they squarely don't fall within the definition. It's an absurd argument.
Well, you, sir, are an absurd. It's absurd for any attorney general that served under a president to go on a television show and give his personal opinion on a legal matter. That's the top cop in the land. You should recuse yourself from offering any opinion at all. That's number one. Number two, the president does have sweeping authority. It's called Article 2, Section 1. I believe that you could challenge the Presidential Records Act as being an unconstitutional breach or restraint on the executive branch by the legislative branch. And I think it should be challenged in the courts. And number three, the legal theory that Mike Pence didn't unilaterally could not decide who won the election, but he could have delayed the certification of the election until states were able to determine whether or not they screwed up. Did they violate the Constitution in the way they put in their mail-in ballots and so on and so forth? So, Bill Barr is as wrong as one can be. And it proves that he is there. He was put there to protect the swamp, not to serve the country. So now to the next biggest scandal. That is, of course, the Biden crime family bribery scandal, which is growing by leaps and bounds each and every day. Congressman Andy Biggs, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene joined Maria Bartiromo on Sunday Morning Futures to talk about the burgeoning scandal.
I believe this is the biggest political scandal in the history of the country. You've got a vice president conducting illegal activity, and then you have the DOJ protecting him.
Well, of course, it is the biggest political scandal any of us have ever seen.
Yes, it is. It's going to make Teapot Dome, Watergate, all of the above, Tammany Hall, pale in comparison once we get real journalists with investigative powers. But we're hearing now that as this scandal, watch, this is my prediction, as this scandal begins to look more dire, more trouble for the Biden crime family, Jack Smith is going to bring an indictment on J6.
Yep.
That's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so this is the pattern. This is what they do. And again, we see that Joe Biden the other day said that the Chinese spy balloon it wasn't intentional. Said it was embarrassing for the Chinese, but it wasn't intentional. Last night, President Trump reacted to that idiotic statement.
Just to end on China, this weekend, President Biden, speaking of that Chinese spy balloon, said this.
I think it was more embarrassing than it was intentional.
What do you think about that?
I think it's such a stupid
What would you have done?
He doesn't know what he's... They wouldn't have ever had a spy balloon if I was president. There wouldn't be a spy balloon over our country. That spy balloon was going right over our nuclear sites, taking pictures. And we killed it after it was leaving. It was going back home to China, wherever it was going. But we shot it down over the ocean after it had done all of its work. You know, they don't keep it on the balloon and then you pick it up. That stuff is sent back to China instantaneously as it's taken. So a statement like that is so stupid. They've taken pictures of every one of our nuclear facilities in the Midwest, where we have a lot, where they know better than anybody that we have a lot.
And you're saying that wouldn't happen under you?
They wouldn't have ever done it, no. They wouldn't have ever done it, no. President Xi and I had a very strong relationship, just like I did with Kim Jong-un of North Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, who do you think did more damage here? Trump keeping a battle plan against Iran, which was outdated, which General Milley wrote about in his book, and Trump was reacting to, or the fact that Joe Biden let a spy balloon hover over our sensitive military and nuclear sites for 8 freaking days.
Oh, okay. Joe Biden, definitely. I mean,
perspective.
Yeah.
Absolute perspective.
Well, I was just going to say about Joe Biden, he's running cover for China because he's got Taiwan and everything.
Absolutely compromised.
He's compromised. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They own him lock, stock, and barrel. Mm-hmm. Time for the cringe moment of the day. It belongs to Corinne Jean-Pierre. Listen to, she's a little high on herself.
A year in this role, there's been a couple of things that has made me incredibly proud. Many things have made me incredibly proud to be at that podium during this historic moment. Again, this is a historic administration. I'm a historic figure, and I certainly walk in history every day. But this is also a historic making administration because of this president.
Shut up, Meg.
Yeah, I would agree that I think she's an historic figure, and we'd like for you to be history. Now, please.
Historically bad.
Why is she historic? Because she's a black, lesbian, female, Haitian immigrant, blah, 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 blah. Identity, politics, it's, race, and fear-mongering. That's the Democrats. Those are their trump cards, pardon the pun. Time for the unhinged moment.
Donald J. Trump is now president of the United States.
Congresswoman, actually, she's a representative. Well, she's something from the Virgin Islands. She's the rep from the Virgin Islands. She's a Democrat. She was an impeachment on the impeachment panel. Stacey Plaskett had an oops Freudian moment the other day, and we thought we'd share that with you now.
Having Trump not only have had the codes, but now having the classified information for Americans and being able to put that out and share it in his resort with anyone and everyone who comes through should be terrifying to all Americans, and he needs to be stopped.
You're a nasty person.
Yes, she is.
He needs to be stopped. One of the Secret Service is going to pay a visit to Stacey Plaskett.
I hope.
That is our unhinged moment of the day. All right, our Pockets of Patriots, D.C. remains number 1. Right. Yonkers, New York, breaking into the top 5.
Very good.
Abingdon, Maryland, for the first time in the top 10. And we say hello to West Palm Beach, Florida. Thank you for downloading, subscribing, rating, and review. And don't forget, you can send us an email. Tell us how we're doing. The Sean Casey Show at gmail.com.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
All right, thanks, Ken. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and our interview with Peachy Keenan. Grab her book. It's excellent. Thanks to our executive producer, Michelle Double-Extrasella.
My pleasure.
And to our other producers, associate producer, Logan and Hunter Casey. We're back later this week. Make sure you stay tuned and fight hard and stay free.